Hello, YouTube. My name is Brin. I am the owner and administratrix of Bigender.net. It's a home, it's a home on the web for people like me who are bigender. So I made a video last week, and it was a half-hour long, and I felt really good about finally having a video up because I kind of burned myself out in November with my 30 videos in 30 days project. So I'm trying to get back in the habit of it so that if I do 30 videos in 30 days this November, I'm more accustomed to doing it. It's not so draining a process. However, this is my 5th time trying to make this video because I always end up sort of rambling and hedging, and I'm going to try really hard not to do it this time. Okay? So bear with me a little bit. I wanted to talk about fatherhood, my role as a father, who I am as a dad, or why I'm a trans woman who identifies as dad and father and very strongly identifies with fatherhood. So, a couple of caveats. Nothing that I say in this video is intended to elevate fathers above mothers, to imply that a child needs a mother and a father, in any way denigrate my ex-wife's relationship with my kids, our kids, because she's a fantastic mother. I mean, seriously, I got incredibly lucky, or I chose very well, who was the mother of my kids, So I'm very lucky to have her as a co-parent. So, there's no ill will born towards her, and I am not trying to minimize in any way the relationship she has with her children. I'm really only talking about the relationship that I have with our children, and what fatherhood means to me. Okay? So, that said, I spoke last week about a gathering that I was at a couple of weeks ago of trans people at someone's house in Chicago. It was very casual. It was very relaxed. We were mingling. There was one point where we were all introducing ourselves to everybody. And in my introduction, I talked about Bigender.net. I talked about making silly videos on the internet. I talked about being a dad. And I mentioned on here before, I have 2 daughters. They're about 10 and 12 now. There were a couple of other women there who also identified as dads. And one of them, Allie Stevens, came up to me afterwards and told me how gratified she was, because I went very early on. I was 1st or 2nd or something like that. How gratified she was to hear me call myself a dad, as a trans woman. And it's very important to me to do that. I know that a lot of trans women... By the way, Allie Stevens was the sound designer for the Trans 100 live event, and she did a fantastic job, and she is a really awesome person. She's really, modest, she always really compliments me on how I look, but she is so classy and put together. Literally, she's elegant. That's the word for her, is elegant and classy. And I think she doesn't see it. So I just wanted to make sure that I said it publicly, because she's awesome and deserves to hear it. Anyway, I don't even know if she watches this stuff, but she's a really cool person and a really engaging person to talk to. I talked to her a bit at the Trans 100 event as well. Anyway, I think a lot of trans women, especially trans women who had children before coming out and transitioning, have a very complicated relationship with the idea of being a dad. I've known some trans women who transitioned when they had very young children, or had children after they transitioned, who have identified themselves as moms and have asked their children to call them mom or mommy or mother or something, and I have no problem with that. I have no objection to trans women being mothers. Okay? But that's not ever a role I wanted to identify as or identify with. When I was with my ex-wife, we lived a very sort of heteronormative life for the most part. And we had very similar philosophies on parenting, which, is great when you're going to have children together. We always, we set out early on to create an environment of satisfied curiosity. And that was a philosophy that we, developed together, and just, we are very similarly minded, and we both have very close relationships with both of our children. But I think we both also had this very gendered notion of father and mother, and she's very proud of her identity as a mom, and she guards it pretty closely. I think, when I first started coming out, she made it very clear that she didn't want the kids to call me mom. And I'm fine with that, because I never wanted the kids to call me mom either. They have a mom, and she does a really great job at being mom, and I don't ever want to not be dad for them. I think my ex and I have sort of maybe a little different ideas of what dad and mom means, but we both have this idea that there's a difference. And I think on the basics, we agree on a lot of stuff. The importance of education, the importance of appreciating oneself for who one is, and being honest and being kind and just being true to yourself. At the same time, she and I are very different people. She's far more pragmatic and practical than I am. Not to say she's boring, because she's so not. But she just comes from a very grounded perspective in a way that I just don't. I'm far more whimsical and impulsive. There's a lot of ways that I live my life by the seat of my pants, and I always have. And that doesn't mean that I'm irresponsible. It doesn't mean that I am unreliable. I have a lot of responsibilities as a dad, especially as a single dad. I am responsible for putting a roof over my kids' heads half of their life, because my ex and I trade off every week, feeding them, providing for their school, and, all of these very serious responsibilities that I take very seriously. And I know how to manage my own impulsiveness and whimsy. But one of the differences, I think, that decently describes my and my ex's relationship with our children is, and I heard this notion very early on in becoming a parent, and I don't know how accurate it is, but it was something that sort of stuck in my imagination. Those baby Bjorn carriers, the child carriers, what I had seen in some parenting book or magazine or something was that mothers tend to carry their children facing inward, facing their chests. And it's very, comforting and cozy type of way to be carried. And fathers tended to carry their children facing outward, facing the world. I was always sort of tickled by that idea. Both of those things are very important to make sure a kid feels safe and nurtured and comforted, and also that they feel brave and able to face the world and adventurous and just sort of bold. Both of those things are very important. But I've always sort of tried to inspire their sense of adventure as much as satisfy their curiosity, in the same way that she's imparted a lot of practicality and pragmatism on them and given them tools to use them, you know? And that's all really important stuff, and I absolutely encourage them in developing those skills. But at the same time, I try to fire their sense of adventure, and I get excited about things, and I try to get them excited about things and find out what they get excited about and just geek out over it, get inordinately excited, you know. And if they have an impulse, I try to pull out, you know, like tease it out and apply that curiosity, you know, and see what happens. You know, this summer we're going to build a workshop in the garage, a little wood shop, because I want them to learn how to use, you know, power tools and get comfortable working with their hands, because I think that's important to know, you know, and it gives them a sense of accomplishment of I made a thing, you know. And again, none of this is stuff that my ex doesn't do. It's just she approaches it very differently from me. But I want to encourage that sense of whimsy. A lot of things have happened in my life, a lot of great things have happened in my life because of a whim that I encouraged and that I developed, you know. Bigender.net is one of those things. I realized that there was no resources on the internet for bigender people, not as such. So I found out who owned the domain name, and they hadn't been doing anything with it, so I bought it, and I thought, you know, I bet I could put a web page up, and I wonder if I could put a forum up, and bam, you know, I did. And it's afforded me a lot of really awesome opportunities and relationships, and creating these videos was very much, you know, a whim. I was so taken with the idea of the It Gets Better project, and I saw that all of the videos were talking to gay and lesbian teens, and none of them were talking to trans teens, and I thought, you know, I have something to say about that. So, you know, I made a video, and I put it up, and, you know, I really enjoyed doing that, so I kept making videos, and this is, I think, my 40th video outside of the Trans Awareness Month videos. So there's 60 of those, but outside of that there's 40 of these or something. And then there's other videos here and there. So I think this is actually the 112th video that's up on my channel. That's pretty cool. Like, I don't know. I'm just sitting here talking to a camera, and I don't know why anyone listens to me, but people do. I got to go to Yale. I got asked to speak at Yale in front of their LGBTQ co-op. Like, that was so cool. I would never have had that opportunity if I hadn't just decided to throw a video up on the internet one day, you know? And I've met so many awesome people. I've developed friendships. I've learned so much and become such a different person, and so much more comfortable with myself because I put myself out there and, you know, took a shot on a whim, you know? One of the things that led to my girlfriend and I getting together is before we were dating, when we were friends, we had helped a friend move, and she moved to like some 3rd or 4th floor apartment. And through her window of her new apartment, you could see the complex across the way, or the building across the way, was like 4 condos or something that were all stacked on top of each other. And none of them had their windows closed, or their blinds closed. Or curtains or anything, so we could see right into their houses, and you could see into the stairwell that goes up, you know, all of the flights of stairs. And so we were staring over the back of the couch, looking out the window, and narrating their life. You know, we were sort of we just came up with this narrative about you know, some nurse who lives on the top floor, and she was having an affair with the guy on one. But what she doesn't know is that he was sleeping with the guy that delivers, you know, whatever. It was just this really awesome, fun, whimsical experience, and I think it was, you know, it was something on the direct path to us getting together. So that was really cool. You know, I want to encourage that in my kids. I want to encourage them to be bold and brave and learn about themselves and learn what they can do and what they can't do, and learn. You know, go on adventures, you know? And the greatest adventure that you'll ever take is finding out who the hell you are. I want them to learn that as soon as they possibly can. My dogs are going crazy because somebody's walking their dogs right past the yard. Anyway, I want them to go on that adventure as soon as they can, and I don't want them to have to overcome all of this internalized shame and fear and guilt that I did, you know, to find out who the hell I am. So, you know, that's part of being a dad, and encouraging discipline, you know, and responsibility. Like, these are important parts of being a dad and being a parent, but to me, it's part of being a dad. I was raised by a single father. My mom died when I was almost 4 years old. And for a long time, it was just my dad, my brother, and I. And he got married when I was a teenager, but my stepmom and I didn't always get along. So the most important influence on who I am is my dad. And the thing is, he's not even my biological father. I didn't find that out until I was 22. Like, that's how awesome he was at being my dad, that I had no reason to question it. Even when looking at the facial features of my brother and, you know, the rest of my cousins, there was plenty of reason for me to question, but I never did. You know, he's just that good a dad, and he's an example in a lot of ways of the person I want to be for my children, you know? And in some ways, you know, who I don't want to be. Like, that's important too. You know, my dad told me to stop asking so many questions a lot when I was a kid, and that was something I swore I would never, ever tell my kids. And I haven't, but the difference between my dad and me is that I have an internet that I can point my kids at and say, go find out, you know. He didn't have that, so... and, you know, he didn't have the same resources that I have. Like, there's... anyway, he was an amazing dad to me. He is an amazing dad to me. We're really close, you know? And I just want to live up to who he has been for me. I want to be that person for my kids. And all of that is wrapped up in the word dad for me. So I don't have any objection to other trans women not calling themselves dad. That's not really my business, you know? And maybe some of my, my holding on to dad as a concept comes from some gender normative bullshit that I need to figure out and tease out in my own head. But I always want to be dad to my kids, no matter what I look like, and no matter where my gender journey takes me. I'm always going to be their dad. Sometimes it's a little uncomfortable in public when they say dad, because I don't always look like other people's conceptualization of what a dad is supposed to be, or platonic ideal of a dad. I don't look like that. I'm never going to look like that, you know? That's okay. I just have to be the dad that I want to be, and it has more to do with the relationship that I create with my children than it does with any expectations that anybody else places on me. But it's so important to me. And I can't say that if I had been raised by a mom and a dad my whole life that I would have a different, you know, I would or would not have a different approach. But I mean, I lived the life that I lived, and being a dad is so important to me. Like, it's so vital to my core sense of self. And I think that other trans women need to hear that and know that it's okay to like being a dad and be happy being a trans woman. Because I think we get so many mixed messages about what we have to do as trans women in order to be authentic to ourselves by other people's standards. Like, parse that out, but it's, you know, it's fucked up. Like, we're supposed to adhere to a set of, you know, feminine ideals and also not overdo it so that it becomes caricature or something. I mean, whatever we do, we're accused of doing the wrong thing. But I think it's important that other trans women hear that they have permission to be dad and that that's okay. And, you know, and it is. I'm so glad to be a dad. I love my kids, and I love co-parenting with my ex-wife. She's such an amazing mother. You know, I ended up at 20 minutes, and I ended up rambling a little more than I wanted to, but I think that's really where it is. Like, if you want to still be dad, you're still allowed to be dad, you know? And you know, if you're mom, you're allowed, you know, if you want to be mom, you're allowed to be mom, but you better make sure that your co-parent is on board, you know, with all of that. Because it really pays to be on the same page. And have them behind you with your kids, you know, and present that united front. But yeah, so that's it. You know, the most rewarding thing I will ever do in my life is be the dad to my kids, you know, be their father, and nothing else comes close to that. Nothing. And I wouldn't give it up for the world. Text. Anyway. So yeah, that's it for this week. Sorry that it's 21 minutes. If you have comments, leave them below. If you have questions, you can find me on Twitter at BrinConvenient, on Tumblr at BrinConvenient. I answer questions there sometimes that don't make it into videos. I am at bigender.net. You can email me at brin@bigender.net. I'm on Facebook, BrinConvenient. I don't know. I'm flipping everywhere on the internet. You can find me. So, find me. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I appreciate all of you.